My mom whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Sometimes I wish you'd never been born." My dad didn't even look at me. I smiled and said, "Wish granted." I walked out. 30 minutes later the group chat exploded. Calls, messages, panic. 39 missed calls. She said it like she'd been waiting years to finally let it slip. "Sometimes I wish you had never been born." Her voice didn't shake. She didn't whisper it in anger or exhaustion. She said it while passing the mashed potatoes to my dad, like it was just another comment about the weather. My dad didn't even look up. He stabbed a piece of meat, chewed, swallowed. The sound of his knife scraping the plate was louder than anything else in that room. For a second I just sat there, fork in my hand, staring at the candle flickering in front of me. I wasn't surprised. I'd heard her say it before, in smaller ways. The quiet sigh when I came home from college. The way she told people I was still figuring myself out when I actually had straight A's. The way she smiled at my brother like he was everything she ever wanted, and at me like I was a long list of mistakes she couldn't erase. This time though she said it out loud. No pretending, no sugarcoating. I pushed my chair back, stood up and said, "Wish granted." That was it. No shouting match, no tears. I just grabbed my keys from the counter and walked out. No one followed me. Outside, the night air hit hard, cold enough to sting, quiet enough to hear my own heartbeat. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. I kept walking until the house was out of sight, the porch light shrinking behind me like a dying star. At the corner I stopped, opened my phone. 15 messages already. Then 20. Then more. Ellie, my cousin, texted, "What happened? Your mom's freaking out." Good. As I wasn't coming back. I checked into a small motel 20 minutes away, the kind of place that smelled like cigarette smoke and cheap air freshener. Paid in cash. The guy at the front desk didn't even look up from his phone when I signed in under a fake name. Room 106. Single bed, flickering lamp, and a window facing the highway. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen. I looked calm. Too calm maybe. But inside I was replaying everything. Every time she'd rolled her eyes when I talked about college, every time my dad stayed quiet when she said something cruel, every time I wondered why I wasn't enough. I wasn't planning to disappear. Not really. What I had in mind was worse. Because you can't make someone like my mother understand pain by yelling at her. You can't guilt her into feeling remorse. You have to make her experience what it's like to lose control. To feel powerless. And I'd already started. Last month I found her passwords written on a sticky note in her office. She trusted me enough to ask for help setting up her new phone, so I helped myself too. Access to her email, her social media, her online banking. I didn't use any of it. Yet. But tonight, after she said those words, I knew exactly what to do with them. She wanted me gone. So I'd show her what life looked like without me in it. The calls kept coming. 39 missed by midnight. My dad even texted once. "Come home. Please." I stared at it for a long time before turning my phone off. Too late. They wished me away. Now they could learn what that really meant. By the time the sun came up, I was already on my second burner phone. I bought it at a 24-hour gas station 2 towns over, along with a hoodie, disposable gloves, and a prepaid debit card. The guy at the counter didn't ask questions. People don't when you pay in cash and avoid eye contact. I sat in the back booth of the attached diner, watching the parking lot while I ate half a piece of dry toast. Not because I was hungry, I just needed somewhere to think. The silence after I turned off my real phone had been louder than anything. That phone was still in my motel drawer. Still buzzing. Probably surrounded by missed calls and frantic messages like some kind of digital grave. But I wasn't going back to that room, and I definitely wasn't turning that phone back on. Instead, I used the burner to access a private laptop server I'd set up 2 months earlier. I'd been collecting things. Quietly, carefully. Photos. Screenshots. Voice memos. Things my mother had said when she thought no one was listening. The time she told my aunt over wine that she never bonded with me because she didn't want a daughter, especially not a difficult one. The time she mocked my therapist. The time she rolled her eyes when I mentioned I'd made the dean's list and said, "Well, not like it'll matter. You're not a real Ivy kid." She thought those things would just disappear after she said them. I didn't let them. The first step was small. I changed the password to her Facebook and set her status to something vague but disturbing. Just one sentence: I lied about everything. Then I logged out and left it. Let the message sink in. Let the people she carefully curated her image for start asking questions. She lived for appearances. The smiling photos, the perfect captions, the edited reality. I wanted cracks to show. Not enough to ruin her completely. Just enough to make her spiral. Next, I opened her inbox. Thousands of emails. I filtered the important ones. Work, bills, people she needed to keep happy. And forwarded them to an anonymous email with an autoresponder. Your account activity has been flagged due to unusual behavior. Please verify your identity to restore access. I knew she'd panic. Blame the system. Maybe blame my dad. But she wouldn't think of me. Not yet. I waited a full hour before touching the bank account. Not to steal. I wasn't interested in the money. I just scheduled a transfer, a fake one, and let the system alert her. I knew she'd get the notification. Knew she'd wake up in the middle of the night and check her balance. See the $2,000 pending move to an account she didn't recognize. There would be a fraud alert in her inbox before morning. All it took was 15 minutes of access and the smallest nudge to tip her perfect world just slightly off balance. And this was just the beginning. I needed her scared. Not for her life. That would be too easy, too dramatic. I wanted her to fear something she couldn't control. Me. The daughter she'd treated like an error in her life plan. The girl who sat across from her for years, smiling through gritted teeth, doing everything to be enough. He thought she knew me. Thought I'd cry in my room and come crawling back like I always had. But this time she wouldn't get that ending. This time she'd be the one checking shadows and jumping at every email. She'd start to wonder if someone was watching. If someone was inside her life in ways she couldn't trace. And the worst part? I knew her schedule. Her routines. Her secrets. She had no idea how easy she'd made it for me to become invisible. Not just unwanted in her house, but unnoticed in her world. And soon I'd start showing her what that felt like. From the inside out. By the third day, I knew they still hadn't figured anything out. They thought I ran away. That I was hurt or spiraling. They were posting vague updates on Facebook, pretending to be concerned. Ellie forwarded me screenshots. My mom had written something about struggling with a family emergency and praying for healing. That one almost made me laugh. Healing. She'd used those exact words when talking about her rose bushes last spring. My dad, silent as usual. Except for one group message to my cousins. If anyone hears from her, please tell her we just want to talk. He couldn't even say my name. Meanwhile, I was 4 towns away living under the name Lena Kessler, using a fake college ID I ordered online 6 months ago. It worked. No one looked twice. The hotel was better this time. Business class. Free breakfast. Clean sheets. I used a prepaid card to book it and another one to keep my burner phone topped up. My real bank account was untouched. Everything I was doing outside of my life. I'd spent over a year building escape routes in my head. Turns out they weren't hard to make real. That afternoon I made my first real move. I mailed the first letter. Typed, no return address. No handwriting. No threats. Just a copy of a therapy bill from 2019. One she'd thrown in my face during an argument, telling me she only paid it to prove she tried. On the back of the paper I printed a single sentence. You should have tried harder. I dropped it in a mailbox 2 blocks from the hotel. Then I waited. 12 hours later I got a text from Ellie. Did you send Mom something? He's acting weird. Like scared. I replied, nope. But, she said, she found something in the mail. Locked herself in her office. Dad's been calling everyone. Good. That was the goal. Not to harm. Just to unsettle. Just enough for her to start feeling what I'd felt. That low, constant anxiety that something's wrong and no one believes you. That night I logged back into her email. She had contacted her work's IT department about a phishing scam. She was trying to sound composed, but I could read it in the language. She was unraveling. Then she did something I hadn't predicted. She reported the incident to the police. Nothing major. Just a standard concerned citizen report about a possible stalker or hacker. But the fact that she did it told me something. She had no idea it was me. Not even a guess. And that hurt her more than anything. Because for once she wasn't in control. She couldn't just throw a guilt trip and be done with it. She couldn't fight it with her usual weapons. She couldn't fix it with silence or scorn. She was being haunted by a ghost she created, and the best part? Everyone around her thought she was just losing her grip. I watched her Facebook page from a fake account. She started posting religious quotes. Weirdly out of character for her. Stuff like, God sees the heart. And even strong people can break. I copied them, pasted them into a file. It was becoming a pattern. A public performance of pain, the kind she never allowed me. That's when I knew the next step. One she would never see coming. I bought a burner number that looked like it came from our old area code. I called the house once. Let it ring 3 times. Then hung up. I waited 10 minutes. Then did it again. This time she picked up. I didn't say a word. She didn't either. She just stayed on the line. Breathing. Waiting. When she finally whispered, "Who is this?" I ended the call. I didn't need to answer. She'd already started to figure it out. Not the full picture. But enough to know this wasn't random. And the moment she realized who was behind it, that it was me, her daughter, that would be the moment everything changed. She'd remember exactly what she said at that dinner table. And for the first time, maybe she'd start wishing for something different. But it was too late for wishes. By the time a week passed, I could tell my mother wasn't sleeping. She'd stopped posting her morning coffee pictures, stopped sharing fake motivational quotes. The tone of her messages changed too. Ellie told me she'd been calling her every night, asking if she'd heard from me, but not in the worried way you'd expect. More like she was afraid of what she might hear. Exactly how I wanted her. She'd always been obsessed with control, of her image, her tone, her family. She used to iron napkins before dinners just to make sure everything looked perfect. Now she was probably double-checking every shadow in the hallway. I waited until Friday before sending the second letter. It wasn't as direct as the first. Just a printed screenshot of an email she sent me 2 years ago. The one where she said, "You'll never understand what it's like to sacrifice your life for someone who doesn't even make you proud." Underneath I typed, "Now I understand." No signature. I mailed it from a different town this time. She'd think I was moving. Drifting. Watching. That night, Ellie texted again. "Mom's crying. Dad's losing it. She thinks someone broke into the house." I asked what happened, pretending I cared. She swears someone moved her things. The lights were on in her office when she woke up. Dad said she's imagining it, but she's terrified. I smiled. Because she wasn't imagining it. I'd been there. 3 nights before, while she was probably at one of her church meetings, I drove back to the neighborhood. The house looked the same. Clean, trimmed hedges, porch light on. I still had a spare key from before college. I hadn't planned to use it, not really. But standing there in the dark, looking at the same door I used to slam behind me after every argument, I realized I couldn't leave without reminding her I existed. I didn't break anything. Didn't steal. Just moved things slightly. The family photo on the wall, I turned it sideways. The drawer in her office, left slightly open. My old bedroom door, closed when it used to stay cracked. Small things, just enough to feel wrong. Then I left one thing behind. A folded piece of paper on her desk. Like, except for one sentence in the center. Still here. No name. No threat. Just those 2 words. Now she was unraveling. But what I didn't expect was my dad's reaction. He wasn't falling apart the way she was. He was angry at her, not me. Ellie said they'd been fighting nonstop. He accused her of making it all up for attention. She accused him of protecting me. The house that used to be so perfectly quiet was now filled with shouting. They deserved each other. That same weekend I made another call. This time from a payphone outside a grocery store. I dialed their home number, then hung up again. The next morning I sent an anonymous email to her work account. "How's the family?" Ellie called me a few hours later, voice shaking. She said my mom had collapsed in the kitchen. Paramedics came. Panic attack, they said. She was fine physically. But something had snapped. I didn't answer Ellie's next messages. I just sat in that hotel room with the blinds half open, watching headlights pass by, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not regret. Just a strange, hollow quiet. Because even though this was what I wanted, her scared, her exposed, her stripped of control, I couldn't ignore one thing. When I pictured her face in that moment of collapse, it wasn't victory I saw. It was something else. Something that looked like realization. For the first time in her life, maybe she was starting to understand what she'd done. But it didn't matter. It was too late for that. I'd already decided how this would end. I told myself I wouldn't cross the line. I lied. 3 weeks into being gone, the anger had a shape. It wasn't fireworks or screaming. It was a slow, surgical precision. I wanted them to feel exposed in the place they always thought was safest, in front of other people. The first mistake they made was assuming whatever was happening was random. The second was assuming I wouldn't fight back. I uploaded everything. Not all at once. I started small. A voicemail clip to the family chat. 30 seconds. My mother's voice, crisp and casual, saying the words I'd lived with for years. Sometimes I wish you had never been born. No staging, no edits. Just her in the kitchen thinking no one was listening. The messages in the group exploded. Ellie posted, then deleted. Jamie called and hung up. My dad texted, "Who sent this? Where are you?" Their panic was a sound I could almost phone in. Rapid, ridiculous, honest. Then I hit send on the next file. It was longer. A recording of my mother on the phone with her sister from a year ago. She was laughing while describing me like a distant inconvenience. She compared me to a bad investment and told a story about me that bent facts into cruelty. People read it, saved it, shared it. My inbox, the old group threads, the people who had been polite at dinners. All of them suddenly had proof. People started calling her work. One anonymous tip to HR, another to the PTA president. A woman who'd eaten Thanksgiving with us last year forwarded an excerpt to the neighborhood email list with the subject line, "Maybe someone should say something." My mother, Susan, was on the defensive for the first time in her life. She made the mistake of going public with a denial, an emotional post about family privacy and false accusations. It landed like gasoline. Someone replied with a screenshot of an email she'd sent to a friend. "I can't pretend anymore. I don't love her. I tried, but I don't." That one hit harder than anything I had ever done. My father, Robert, finally called the police when a neighbor reported suspicious activity around their house. Officers came to the property, took statements, scribbled notes. They asked questions about harassing messages and whether anyone in the family had enemies. My mother cried in front of them, not the small polished crying she used to perform on social media, but a raw kind I hadn't seen. For a second I almost called her back and told her to stop. I didn't. Instead the neighborhood turned. People who used to bring casseroles sent curt messages asking if everything was okay. The PTA quietly removed my mother's name from an upcoming bake sale committee. Her friends began to unfriend her on social media. I got a call from my dad 2 nights later. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message, voice rough in a way he never was with me, saying he didn't sleep, that he wanted me home, that he didn't even know how things had gotten this far. He ended it with a line I'd heard him say 100 times before, only meant for when things were salvageable. "We can fix this." I listened to it twice and then deleted it. The leak didn't just humiliate them. It started a chain reaction that unstitched the life they had been carefully weaving for 2 decades. My mother was under investigation at work for creating a hostile environment. My father had to defend his silence in front of coworkers who assumed he knew more than he admitted. Family members took sides. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years sent messages that were equal parts outrage and curiosity. They all wanted the story. They all wanted to be on the right side of it. I watched them burn through their defenses and assume everything would be salvageable if they apologized publicly, if they posted the right pictures, if they attended the right church events. They put on masks to placate their audience while everything that mattered, the private, small things, slipped away. I started getting messages from strangers too. Women who said my mother had been cold to their kids, men saying they'd witnessed a similar cruelty. A local reporter asked if she could interview me. I rejected them. This was never meant to be a spectacle. But then something else happened that I hadn't counted on. My mother stopped pretending. She stopped writing polished defenses. Instead she started leaving the house hours at a time, driving without a destination. Once she left a voicemail on Ellie's phone, voice flat and almost apologetic. I never thought it would come to this. I thought I was protecting the family. It sounded like someone reading words they didn't recognize. He sounded like she was reading my life notes back to me. People began to say the name that cuts the deepest in situations like this. Regret. It was the word that kept me awake at night. Not because I wanted it, but because I couldn't tell if it was enough. I wanted them to feel the hollow where my presence had been. I wanted them to understand that words have weight. But I also wanted them to realize the whole truth, that their neglect had been a choice, not an accident. A week later, a cousin called me from the group chat, her voice trembling but fierce. Mom found something, boxes. Old stuff. She watched an old tape of you when you were 5. She kept saying your name like she was trying to make it real again. I hadn't expected that. The boxes, the tape. I had left a trail designed carefully to be found, to pull at the frayed threads of their memory. I had placed a USB drive in the attic during one of my midnight visits and recorded a compilation of small things. My voice answering a question about what I wanted to be at 7, my dad teaching me to tie a tie, a birthday where my mother had smiled at me without judgment. I had added, at the end, a clip of her saying the line at the dinner table. He watched it. He told people she watched it. She started talking about me in a way she hadn't. The way a person speaks when they finally name what they've lost. For a day I felt something close to triumph. Then a different feeling came. Not regret, not satisfaction, but the heavy realization that I had made myself the instrument of their unraveling. They were tired, bleeding out in slow public ways I had orchestrated. And somewhere between the leaked audio and the boxes in the attic, a strange thing happened. My mother, Susan, began to look like someone who could have loved me if she'd been taught to. Too late or not, that realization landed on all of us. By the time I turned my phone back on, there were 50 missed calls and an email from my mother with a subject line that read, "Mia, can we talk?" I didn't answer her email. Not at first. I opened it, read it, closed it, then opened it again. It wasn't long. No dramatic apology, no rambling confession. Just a few lines. "Mia, I saw everything. I deserve it. But if there's still a piece of you that remembers how I used to brush your hair before school, or the way you clung to me when you were sick, please let me say this to your face. Not to defend myself, just to look at you and not lie. I won't ask you to forgive me. Just come home once." He signed it, Mom. That part hit harder than anything else. For a moment, I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. I looked older. Not in my face, in my eyes. Like everything I'd done had taken years off me I hadn't noticed. That email was her first real attempt to reach the version of me she had ignored for over 2 decades. She sounded like someone who finally understood what she'd lost. But I didn't write this story for a reunion. I wrote it for closure. And closure doesn't always mean coming back. So I went. One last time. Not to stay. Not to talk. But to see. I parked down the block, stayed in the car and watched the house from behind tinted glass. The windows were dark except for the upstairs bedroom. Her light was on. She was sitting at the edge of the bed, just still, hands in her lap, staring at the floor. She looked so small. Not the woman who used to control every room she walked into. Not the woman who told everyone I was difficult, dramatic, too emotional. Just a mother who didn't know how to fix something she'd broken years ago. I didn't go to the door. I didn't ring the bell. Instead, I walked around the back, to the edge of the yard where my old swing set used to be. The chains were gone, just the frame left rusting in the grass. My initials were still carved into the wood of the post. I added one more letter beside them. Single slanted F. For finished. For free. For whatever it meant now. Then I left a small envelope under the back porch mat. Inside it was a photo. One of the few she didn't have. Me at 17, standing on stage at a school awards ceremony, holding a medal she never showed up to see. On the back I wrote, "You missed this. You missed a lot." No name. No address. Just that. And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Not once. 3 days later, Ellie called. I picked up. She said my mom saw the envelope. Didn't say much after. Just held the picture for a long time. Then asked Ellie if she thought I was safe. When Ellie said yes, she nodded and said, "Good. That's all that matters now." That was the last update I allowed myself to hear. I changed my number. Switched states. Got a studio apartment near the coast and started over with a name I still don't use out loud. Some nights I still see her face in my dreams. Not angry, not cruel. Just confused. Like she's still trying to piece together where it all went wrong. And maybe she'll spend the rest of her life doing that. But me, I'm done. Because she got what she wished for. I disappeared. She just didn't expect it to feel like this. Not so quiet. Not so final. Not so real. And by the time she realized the cost, I wasn't hers to apologize to anymore.